Good morning, and welcome to Brookings, and welcome to Metropolitan Studies. Just as a reminder, this program is webcast, so whatever you say, it will be memorialized, and it's also open for tweet. You'll see the hashtag on the screens. It's hashtag Innovation Districts. My name is Ben Jacobs. I'm here, I guess, initially or primarily, I'm a trustee of Brookings. As to other reasons for my being here and having the privilege of introducing this morning's program, I'm not quite certain. Perhaps over the course of the next few minutes, the reason will come to me, but it's not yet here. But I do have 52 plus years, not surprising from the visage, of hands-on real estate development experience, primarily in the Washington, D.C. area, but from time to time, we do go afield. Even that would raise the question, so what? And I like to think almost like a psychiatric patient who goes tediously and religiously to therapy every now and again, though he may not improve, there are bits of insight that come along which can be valuable. The other side of that question is, how can I really presumptively take on and embrace Julie and Bruce's work, The Rise of Innovation Districts? And to draw legitimate parallels, I would have to give you a little context. That is, what is JBG? And just by way of parentheses would include JBG is the company which I was involved in founding 52 years ago and continues even to this day, which in the real estate development business alone could be viewed as remarkable. And this will not, I promise you, be a self-serving shaggy dog monologue about our bona fides. We were starting as a classic, independent, entrepreneurial, sort of ingenue real estate group that did whatever came along and seized opportunities that seemed appropriate, sort of the flavor of the day. But as time passed and experiences evolved, we began to realize that zoning, mandates of the community, particularly community support, market realities, political predictability. And in Washington, D.C. area, many of you know, we have Washington, D.C. as a jurisdiction. We have Virginia, we have Maryland, we have the federal government. Then we have Arlington County, Alexandria, Fairfax, Montgomery, Prince George's, a whole plethora of legislative and community initiatives that can intersect to either support or frustrate one's best efforts. And so we've learned from that. We've begun to realize that something more than a simple, straightforward, one-off development was really the key to creating value, not just value for ourselves, which is one criteria, and our investors to whom we have a fiduciary responsibility, but to the community itself, to the political members within the community, that is the elected officials, but also to members of the community. They begin to realize that a multi-use, multi-dimensioned, long-term project is one that has sustainability, and I mean sustainability not just in the environmentally correct sense, but also sustainable if one element begins to fade because it's a primary employer, perhaps, or a retail establishment. If there is viability, if there is cohesiveness in the development, it can, to a much greater degree than would be typically the case, sustain itself. And we felt that was particularly important. It was sort of the beginning for us, and with the advent of the Metro, and that really dates us, sort of my duh moment. We realized mixed-use development is really important, and transit orientation, particularly in this area, is critical. And so we begun to look at that in a very critical and analytical way, not beginning to approach the scholarship and analytics that Bruce and Julie and others here have evolved in today's program, but in a simplistic way, in a practical, on-the-street way. And what we see in the greater metropolitan area is great examples of some successes. There's a development, the Southeast Federal Center, which was federal initiative to put the Department of Transportation 1.5 million square feet of a cabinet agency headquarters, in a location. They finally chose a location in a rundown, though there was some development burgeoning, area of this city, and since then it has blossomed. Restaurants, residential, collateral businesses that depend on government contracts, and others. So we have examples, Health and Human Services, another. So in instances, the government, who of course is our primary employer here, will take an initiative and go to an area which can really then be developed. Unfortunately, there are examples of real waste. The St. Elizabeth project, which is in some respects interesting and attractive, now houses the Coast Guard, intended to house Homeland Security, and likely will house the Coast Guard, and probably the Coast Guard. And there's still potential opportunities here. We have Walter Reed, which is a large federal property, formerly the U.S. military hospital, which a little piece of which will remain in an urban area in the District of Columbia, which has real opportunity for mixed-use development. How it will be managed in its disposition and its development turns back to political issues, community issues, and the will of the development community and the user community, residential, retail, commercial primarily, to get engaged, and that requires patience, because in any jurisdiction here, as well as most, patience is a key. And so then I think to myself, what are the keys that have brought us to our recognition of this? And patience would be the first piece. A limited vision, because aspirations that are too great will inevitably fall asunder. Capital, and not just capital in the monetary sense, but people capital. And that has become and remains a critical element, in my view, of these long-term visionary type developments that are going to be the key, we believe, for us, and I believe for others, going forward into the next generations of community growth, city growth, area growth. And finally, probably the most important piece, which takes me back to what is the reason I'm here: luck. I mean, it has a lot to do with luck. And so for me, I'm very lucky to be here and have the opportunity to introduce Bruce and Julie's program. And I encourage you all to enjoy the day, and thanks for indulging me.